It was a tale of tries, snow and general good vibes at the Butts Park Arena on Friday night as the Bears kicked off their 2019 campaign with a friendly against Leeds Rhinos of the Super League. We've got all the reaction for you. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bear Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bear Necessities, your favourite podcast about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, on Spotify, loads of other places too, and we are sponsored by York's Tim. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Mustard, and joining me as always is my co-pilot and former Bears player, Craig Cathcart. Craig, enjoy yourself on Friday night?
Yes, mate. Yeah, I'm still buzzing after Friday night. Shame the guys couldn't just quite do enough to get the win, but it was a fantastic night, really good atmosphere at the ground, and a really good performance from the Bears. So, yeah, really pleased.
Yes, absolutely was a great night. So coming up on the show, we talk to Leeds Rhinos CEO Gary Hetherington. We welcome back rugby league journalist Steve Mascord, who was also part of the first live streaming commentary team on Friday night. And we'll hear from the first ever Bears Supporters Club man of the match, and more about that later. But first, we'll jump into the story of the game and a bit of a recap for anyone who wasn't there or wasn't watching. And it should be pointed out, you can watch the game back on demand through the live streaming service. We'll remind you of that later in the episode. So it was a fairly even start to a game, both teams looking pretty organised in attack and comfortable in defence. It's actually the Rhinos who opened the scoring with a converted try, but the Bears hit back soon after when Hayden Freeman, who was carrying on where he finished last season in the centres, he got into the end of the well-weighted kick from new halfback Nick Newman to pull it back to 6-4. And Bears took the lead soon after that. Young prop Will Tully, he came on for his debut. He got the ball and he steamrollered about half of the Leeds players out the way to crash under the post for a really impressive score. And Callum Merritt converted to make it 10-6 to the Bears before Leeds bagged another converted try off the back of what looked to me like a decidedly forward-looking pass, but we'll let that go. It was a friendly after all. However, the Bears hit back yet again with another try from a player on debut. This time, second row Jacob Jones was the man who scored, again getting onto the end of a kick from Newman, and Merritt converted it again to make it 16-12, which was the score going into half-time. So Leeds drew level within about 20 seconds of the restart. They just raced away to score in the corner, and then they scored another shortly after that to make it 20-16. And after that, kind of Leeds kept pressing, but the Bears, to their credit, defended impressively, especially in light of the snow that had by then started to fall and the plummeting temperatures. The Bears kept plugging away, but unfortunately they weren't able to break through, and the final score ended as the Bears 16, Leeds Rhinos 20, and there was an attendance at the Butts Park Arena of 866. So Craig and I will share our thoughts in a moment, but first, here's what Bears head coach Tom Tsang had to say afterwards. Well, Tom, belated Happy New Year to you, and welcome back to the podcast. So, only 4 points in it this year. Massive improvement in terms of the scoreline compared to this fixture last year. How do you reflect on what you've seen tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's two different teams on the field than it was last year, and we've changed a lot, and Leeds have certainly changed a lot. So we'll take it for what it is just tonight. But very happy with our performance as a whole. I thought that we, certainly in the first half, we stuck to the way that we've been training, which we wanted to be threatening with the ball on as many different plays as we can do within a set, and we want to make sure that we've got guys pushing through with the ball carrier and working really hard off the ball. That's something that we talked a lot about, and I thought we did that a lot in the first half. Obviously we came out cold in the second half for one reason or another, or maybe credit to Leeds, they came out just with a bit more energy and scored within 20 seconds. And then it was obviously a good tussle, a good arm wrestle for another 20 minutes before they got their second in the second half. And then once that snow started coming down, whoever was in the lead at that point was going to be the favourites. But I got a credit just before half time in the last 20 minutes of the second half. Our goal line defence was very good for where we are in pre-season. Very happy with that, and that attacking shape will come as we build those combinations. There's a lot of new players on the field for us. Some players playing out of position, new combinations. So yeah, as a our first proper pre-season game in 2019. Very happy with where we are.
And I guess the nature of these games is that you end up making a lot of changes, as we saw in the second half tonight, which I guess on the one side is good for you to see these guys in action in a real game, but on the other side it sort of takes the flow out and takes the wind out of you from under your sails a little bit. I mean, do you find the ability to make lots of changes useful, or is it frustrating in some ways?
Well, it's helpful for this because we've got a big squad. We've got I think it's 32 players training with us currently. Not all of those are contracted, but we've got a big number of guys with us. We only took 21 tonight, but yeah, it gives you the chance to see different players in different positions and not sort of piecemeal minutes. They're actually getting a good half an hour, 40 minutes at least, which is always really useful, because if you have too many, then 10 minutes doesn't really show you something. If they don't do well in 10 minutes, it might not be a good reflection of them. So it's good that we can give them some good game time, but in some ways it doesn't then reflect the sort of the strains of an actual game where you got 8 interchanges this year, which is going to be tough. So it's pros and cons, but for tonight as a pre-season game, it was fine. I was happy that we could look at some new combinations. As I said, it was difficult in the second half because both Dan Gover and Peter Ryan picked up knocks before half time, so they didn't come back on, and then Will Tully came off, who was one of their replacements, with about 20 minutes to go, and didn't go back on. So we had Ben Gray and Harry Kaufman playing in the front row for a good 20 minutes, which isn't their position, and they actually did okay with it. But I think because it wasn't their position, if we'd have had actual props in the front row, then we might have had a bit more go forward and given us a bit more opportunity down in the second half. But like I said, as a first hit out for the year, very happy, and I think it demonstrates that we're much further along than we were 12 months ago. And
you mentioned the fact there are plenty of new players on the pitch tonight, a couple of them marking their debuts with tries. Just your thoughts in general on the new guys that perhaps the fans and listeners might not be so familiar with.
Yeah, so I mean, Will Tully, I mentioned him already. He came on and scored within 5 minutes. He's only 19. He's a local lad, localish from Leicester. I think when he came on, Leeds couldn't really handle him for that first 10-15 minutes. And he's going to be, if he stays as grounded like he is already, and he keeps improving like he is already, then he could be very useful for us, and adds to what's already a good young local pack. I thought Nick Newman in the halves combined very well with Conroy at hooker, and when Mitch came on at hooker as well, Mitch Shaw, he sped things up at the ruck as well, which was good. So yeah, some of those combinations. Nick only got off his flight 7 days ago, so for him to be putting out a performance like that, and the guys around him reacting to him, and the combinations there to be looking so sort of fluent after just 1 week of him being here in such a crucial position, but also with it being the first game of the season, we're comfortable with where we are right now. There's definitely a lot of things that we need to work on. I don't think we controlled the ruck very well at times, and I thought that we went into our shell a bit attacking wise in the second half when the rain came down, the snow came down, but we'll get there.
And of course, the thing we talked about in the podcast before is the fact that you've been able to retain so much of last year's squad, and as well as a lot of new players or a lot of familiar players on the pitch tonight. Do you feel like you're seeing the benefits of having a full pre-season with guys who know the club, know what the team's about, know the calls on the pitch as well? Yeah,
without a shadow of a doubt. And we have tweaked things from last year, so it's not 100% the same, but more than anything, we've just scaled things back. And simplified a lot of the stuff that we're doing, and working on the things that were successful at the back end of last year, and really making those a priority. And they're all fundamental, basic things, but obviously it's common sense that if you make yourself really good at the basics, then you'll be there or thereabouts. So yeah, it's definitely been the best pre-season we've had since we came into the league. And I don't think that's any coincidence that it's because we've got the biggest carryover from the previous year.
Great stuff. So we've got about a month before the season starts proper, one more pre-season game to go. So what happens now for you and the players between now and season starting?
Well, we've got to look back at this game and reflect on what we did well and what we needed to improve from tonight. We've got 2 weeks worth of training, which will we'll use tonight as a way to inform with the content that we use in training. But we've got a good idea already what we need to look at. So then that will lead us into the North Wales Crusaders game, and then we'll use that springboard again into the start of the year. But now it's about finding the best combinations. It's about finessing some of the stuff we're doing, attack and defence. And it's also about making sure that we're as fit as we can be for the start of the year.
Great. Well, great stuff tonight, Tom. Looking forward to the start of the season, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks. Pleasure.
So thanks to Tom for joining us on the show and reflecting on Coventry Bears 16, Leeds Rhinos 20 on Friday night. Craig, I think generally speaking, there's plenty to be positive about from that one, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was sat with a bunch of fans during the game, and everyone was very complimentary of the new faces in the Bears team. Very complimentary about how good they looked at this stage of pre-season. Certainly looked much better than they did last year. So yeah, there was so many positives to take out of the game. As I said, on another night, perhaps if the conditions hadn't been quite so poor in the second half, Bears might have actually gone on to win it, but shows a massive amount of progress. They got 70 points put past them last year by Leeds, and then to keep it to a narrow 4-point loss this time. Can't read a huge amount into that because it was probably a slightly younger Leeds team that were here this time, but certainly there's progress. You can see if you watch the highlights back from last year and then you watch the highlights from this year, you can see a massive difference in the confidence in the Bears squad and the ability, and particularly defensively, how much stronger. It was a fantastic performance all round, really. As I say, the only downside was not pushing on to try and get the win. Leeds did keep the Bears pinned in their own half for most of the second half. So, but overall, it was a fantastic performance.
Yeah, and I think what struck me was was how organised the Bears look, and you could tell that they are so much further on in their pre-season journey than they were for this fixture last year, and you can see the benefits of getting their business done early and getting lots of players to recommit from last year, because certainly that first half team, you'd look at that and you'd think that's probably pretty close to a starting first team for when League One actually kicks off in a few weeks. And that first half the Bears won and they looked good. Second half, all of the substitutions, as is the nature of these friendlies, obviously was going to disrupt it, but the fact that they were able to keep Leeds out beyond, they didn't concede anything beyond 20 points, they defended really well in that second half and still kept their organisation, still managed to put some shapes together in attack at least. And it was just those quick fire tries after the break, just that combined with the snow coming, it just kind of killed it a little bit as a spectacle, and it became a lot more about the Bears being camped on their own line. But even that was a good test, because we saw the final game of last season against Hunslet, Bears defended absolutely magnificently, and it's kind of carried on from where they left off, really. It doesn't feel like they've missed a beat. So yeah, very excited about going into the new season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, during the game, I was making some notes while watching.
That's very organised of you.
Yeah, I'm not normally that organised. But I mean, some of the things I wrote down, I mean, one of the first things I put down is the team looks fitter. Mm-hmm. They looked so much quicker, getting back 10. They were pushing up in defence, scrambling back well in defence as well. I think that was a key feature of the game, was the scramble defence, because Leeds had a lot of pace out wide and did use it and made some breaks at times. And the guys got back and defended really, really well too. There was a particular point in the second half, I think it might have been Hayden Freeman who made the tackle when Leeds made a break. It looked like a certain try.
Yeah.
And Bears got back, defended their line and kept Leeds out. It was just fantastic, and they got a big ovation from the crowd at that point. One thing as well, which is very obvious, I think, is the pack looks bigger.
Yeah.
Some of the new signings, they look like big guys. I mean, as you say, Will Tully steamrollered half the Leeds team to get in. The pack looks bigger, and I think that's one area where the Bears in the last couple of years, maybe certainly last year, I've kind of felt at times the pack wasn't quite big enough, not physical enough to take on some of the more experienced teams, and that looks like Bears have recruited well. Certainly in the props, there's going to be some definitely big improvement this year in the quality there that they've got and the number of interchanges they can make in the front row.
Definitely.
Speed of play was great, and that came from Nathan Conroy. Looks absolutely the real deal, and the halfbacks as well look absolutely fantastic. They look class. Callum Merritt stepping up from amateur rugby league into the Bears and playing against Leeds and didn't look out of place. Nick Newman looks absolutely first class, considering he's only been in the country for a couple of weeks. To be playing that well, he looks brilliant.
Yeah, and Mitch Shaw coming on for Conroy as well. I think Mitch Shaw kept the game moving. We are veering slightly into individual accolades here, so I think this is probably a good point to just bring up what we mentioned at the start of the show of the official Bears Supporters Club Man of the Match. So in many ways a new tradition was birthed on Friday night. So for all home games this season, the Bears Supporters Club are going to be picking a Man of the Match, making a presentation to that player post-match in the clubhouse, and hopefully if one of us is around we'll get them on the podcast as well to get their reaction. We were there on Friday. Obviously the Supporters Club chose Dante Morley Samuels as their Man of the Match, and after he got that award, I stuck a microphone under his mouth, and here's what he had to say.
So, Dante, Supporters Club first Man of the Match to be awarded has gone to you. You must be pleased with that?
Yeah, it feels good after the night game, obviously, but it's a massive honour to get it from everyone else who's watched the game. So,
how do you feel the club has progressed from this time last year? Because obviously your debut was in the game against Leeds last year. It was a big win for Leeds last year, much closer this year, much more competitive from the Bears. Do you feel like that's a sign of where the club's going?
Yeah, come a long way. The scoreline should reflect it from last year to this year. Like we closed it down. There's a close margin as well today. So it's all in all, it's good effort for the boys.
And how are you looking forward to finishing off pre-season now and getting stuck into league action in a few weeks?
I can't wait. Pre-season's the worst. There's nothing worse than pre-season.
Good stuff. Well, Dante, best of luck for the season, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
So Dante Morley Samuels there, the first Supporters Club Man of the Match in 2019. Now, Craig, we've already started discussing individuals who caught our eye. Dante obviously had a very impressive game from fullback. I think if I'm right in remembering, the coach's Man of the Match was Ben Gray. Was there anyone else that caught your eye? I was very impressed with Jacob Jones. I think coming in and playing that well in Kieran Sherritt's position, he took his try brilliantly. He was very physical, gave us a lot of go forward and didn't give an inch in defence. I was really impressed with him. Anyone else you want to throw into the mix?
Yeah, he was really impressive. I think I've mentioned both the hookers that played in the game. Nathan Conroy and Mitch Shaw both look absolutely first class. Really made the play of the ball a lot quicker. And the Bears got a roll on quite a lot, just mainly because of how good those guys were. The halfbacks, as I said, were both fantastic. I think we'll probably need to see a few more games, but certainly the props look absolutely fantastic. Considering Dan Gover went off fairly on in the game, the game as well.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of experience lost there. The new guys certainly looked fantastic. Overall, it was just across the field really brilliant. I mean, as you said, it was a bit disjointed second half. Some of the newer players coming in the second half perhaps didn't get much of a chance to shine just because of the game. The game was a bit more stop-start. Leeds had a lot more possession. Bears mostly defending, but it was a really good performance. I think in terms of Dante at fullback, one note I made here was Dante looks the real deal at fullback.
Mm.
And when the Supporters Club came round to ask for nominations, I said Dante, and one of the main reasons I said that is because he was playing out of position, and he looked like he'd always played there, and he really was solid under the high ball, and it was he had a lot of really tricky high balls to deal with.
Mm.
made good yards when he was returning the ball, and his cover defence as well was really great. So maybe he is the solution to that fullback position.
Yeah.
The Bears haven't really had a settled fullback for a couple of seasons now, and it would be really good to see him progress in that position in there, I think.
Yeah, I'd back that. And not only was there lots of impressive performances from the players on the pitch, but the players looked terrific because, of course, it was the first glimpse of the new Bears shirt for the 2019 season. I know you and I, Craig, have been fortunate in seeing the designs in its sort of embryonic stages and seeing it come through all the way to being actually made into a real shirt, but it looked really good, didn't it?
Yeah, it looks fantastic. Looks really good actually on the live stream. Really distinctive shirt, really bold design, and I can certainly see a lot of people buying that.
Yeah, well, there's two of them here, aren't there?
Yeah, and pretty much everyone I spoke to said they loved it, absolutely loved the shirt. So yeah, it's a fantastic design, and I think Alan deserves a lot of credit for the fact that not only is he the owner of the Bears, he pretty much designs the shirt every year, and he always wants to try something different, go for a new design, and yet again he's produced another fantastic shirt.
Yeah, and I noticed on Twitter on the day of the game that Rugby League Hipster gave it his seal of approval, so I think we can safely say that the Bears have the best shirt in Rugby League in 2019. And talking about shirts is a very loose but relevant segue into our next interview guest. So still to come, we're going to hear from Leeds Rhinos CEO Gary Hetherington, but first we're going to welcome back to Bear Necessities the Rugby League journalist and Rugby League merchandise aficionado Steve Mascord. So Steve was part of the commentary team for the official live stream of Friday night's game, and I caught up with him in the 10 minutes or so he had after the end of the game before he had to leave to get off to Hull for another match the following afternoon, and here's what he had to say.
So Steve, you're making a bit of a regular thing of coming to the Bears. You're here last home game, you're here for the first one this season. How'd you find the Bears' efforts tonight?
Yeah, I actually last time I'm not sure how much time I spent outside last time, but I didn't have a choice because we're involved in a broadcast, and that's a real exciting thing about this, Dave, is that Ben Pro, who's pro by name, pro by nature, works for Sky. You've heard it, you've seen him on your TV. He's given up his time to come down and be part of this very first ever broadcast of a Coventry Bears home game live. And I believe that they had enough viewers to make it work for the club, or at least they didn't lose money. So that's the thing that excites me, and obviously the performance was great as well. Very big improvement on last year, I believe. So
yeah, definitely. And in terms of the streaming aspect of it, it's such a hot topic in the game. What with Bradford doing it last season, and lots of people for, some people against it. You're clearly in the for camp. Do you think this kind of approach is the way clubs need to go in rugby league?
Yeah, I think the big choice they have to make is whether they charge for it or not. I know Bradford chose not to. They saw it as a marketing tool. I think, from what I gather, Coventry are very fortunate to have a situation with a company in Clean Cut Sports that they can make it work. I'm not sure whether the economics will be going forward. I think we're all here tonight trialling, just having a go. So I definitely think it's the way to go, and I also think that there's a lot of rugby league that isn't tied down by rights, and there's a lot of sort of lower tier rugby league that people will watch. We had viewers in Australia, getting up at 5 o'clock to watch Leeds versus Coventry in January. So there's definitely, and that's what, with the merch company, we've been doing a little bit of that too, trying to reach people who, I guess it's trying to reach people who other people can't be bothered targeting, you know what I mean? But we understand them because we're kind of like them. So, I hope that, I even inquired, I'm going to Hull KR and Toronto tomorrow, and I said to David Argyle a text, but also to Jeff Hagan, who does their media. I said, can we do audio commentary of the preseason game between Hull KR and Toronto? Everyone in Toronto would listen to that. Everyone will be hanging off Twitter trying to find scores. In tomorrow. When I say everyone in Toronto, everyone who follows the Wolfpack. So. to me, it's a no-brainer that someone should sit at their iPad and call those games because there's an audience for it, and I guess commercialising it is the trick. But Bradford have obviously seen the value of investing some money in it. And obviously Coventry, they haven't spent a fortune tonight, but they've had to get their wallets out as well, so they can see some value in it, and hopefully the fans do as well.
Just quickly, because I know you're a busy man, what are your thoughts on where we're at in terms of expansion going into 2019? Because 2018
is actually very cheap.
Because 2018, from an expansion point of view, Catalans winning the cup. Obviously, we had Toronto against London as £1 million game. You had the England game against New Zealand, Australia in America, which ultimately wasn't perhaps a success it was hoped to be. But from the outside, lots of positivity. But at the same time, Hemel aren't going to be competing in League One this year. There are other teams we've lost from League One recently. Where do you think we're at in terms of expanding the game?
That's a big question. I think there's a bit of back to the future about the relaunch of Super League, although I like a lot of the stuff they're doing, but there's a belief that we can bring the good old days back, and you've got to live in the present, I hear Wigan's season tickets are up and all that's wonderful, but what's happened obviously is disgraceful. What's happened with Toronto and Catalans in particular being asked for a bond to play in the Challenge Cup, and Catalans being the holders of the cup. I think there is. I don't want to get too philosophical, but the world, it seems to be. Big decisions in the world today seem to be made by fearful people, and I think that's true in our sport as well to an extent. People, they're fearful of the future, so they make conservative decisions, and I just hope we can push past that period in our history, get it over and done with as quickly as possible, and go back to expanding and doing all those cool things, because I think we have to. And I know a lot of people are frustrated about the lack of news about New York and whether they're coming in, and I'm one of them. I'd like to hear what's happening there very soon. But this is a positive night for expansion, so everyone who's here will say so. So, I enjoyed it.
Well, Steve, thanks for joining me on the podcast again. Before you go, quick plug for your merch company and for yourself, and a quick prediction as to how you think Coventry Bears will do in League One this season.
I've given enough place for Mascord Browns today. MascordBrowns.com with a Z. International Rugby League gear, plus some club stuff, a bit of Catalan, a bit of Wigan, a bit of Toronto, obviously. I think Coventry will be top half of the table for sure, I'd imagine, based on what I saw tonight. But I can't pretend to be an expert on every other team in the comp, so I probably shouldn't even offer a prediction.
We'll take top half.
Yeah, but based on what I saw tonight, they're going to be a good team. Yeah.
Steve, well, thanks again, and hopefully see you in Cov again soon.
No, thank you.
So huge thanks to Steve for his time and joining us on the podcast and being involved in the live stream. So Craig, I mean, the Bears game being live streamed, lots of our listeners have mentioned it in the time we've done this podcast. So I was really thrilled to see it happen on Friday, and it really came across as a really high class production. For anyone listening, it was done through Clean Cut Sports, and people can go and get that game on demand now if they were there and they want to watch back, or if they weren't there and weren't able to watch live on Friday, they can go and watch it back. But it feels like this is the way this sport has to go, and it's brilliant to see the Bears be one of the leading clubs in trying to make this happen. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously Bradford did it last year. They took a slightly different approach with the free to air through Facebook. And I'm not sure what model they are using for that. But Clean Cut Sports, I've watched the stream back now, and it was an absolutely fantastic job. I mean, the camera work, the commentary, everything was top class. And I think, if you're going to offer a streaming service for people, and I think people are more than willing to pay to watch a quality stream, and it was a quality stream and a real success. According to the latest figures, there was 150 people or more who've watched it so far, and obviously there'll be more people probably purchasing through the on-demand service as well. So, that opens new audiences. Apparently, there was people watching in Canada, the US, Australia,
so there's people watching from all over the world. It's massive for the Bears. I think it raises the brand. It gets people who have an interest in the Bears, and it gives them an opportunity for those who can't come to the game to watch it.
Yep.
There are people, and there's been people who've sort of mentioned to us through social media. There are people in the Coventry and Midlands areas who would love to come to more Bears games, but for some reason, for different reasons, can't do so. And, for those fans as well, it's a fantastic opportunity for them to see the game. So it's got to be the future. I hope, based on the figures, I believe that, the Bears should have more than covered their costs, and hopefully we'll see some more live streams in future. It would be brilliant to see have it for every home game. And, not only that, a potential another area of revenue for the club as well.
And I think we should give some context to those numbers as well, because people listening who perhaps saw what Bradford did on Facebook last year, and you'd see the thousands and thousands of people who had viewed those videos, and might be thinking, well, 150 for the Bears is a big jump. And taken just from a numbers point of view, yes, it is a big difference, but I think the crucial part of this is that the Bears did value the product enough on Friday to put a cost to it. So those 150 people who have paid money to pay for the stream, they're actually going to be vested interest enough to watch the game. Those people who clock up the numbers on Bradford, yes, plenty of people watched the Bradford games last year on Facebook, but also I'm slipping slightly into day job mode here, but like a view on Facebook is if somebody watches for 3 seconds. So those thousands and thousands of views, there's probably a much smaller chunk actually watch for the whole game. So I think 150 is a real success story for a first time for a Bears live stream, and it sort of notches the attendance up to about 1,000 as well if you take those into account. Yeah. So I was really impressed with the fact that the Bears were able to do it. I think the quality of the product that Clean Cut Sports put out was excellent and was more than worth the money. And I'm like you, I really hope we can see more of that happen this season. And I think I would encourage people listening to go and give Clean Cut Sports some love. They're a Coventry-based company as well. They do all the live streaming for the Blaze ice hockey. So there's a local link as well. So that's an even more of a positive thing. And obviously, we will keep you posted about any future live streams on this podcast. But do go and check it out, and do go and purchase the on-demand and watch Friday night's game back.
Yeah, and I was going to say as well, that's 150 subscriptions.
Mm.
Probably many more people. That's one per household, so people would have been sharing it. Possibly, certainly, I know that the Australian contingents who watched the game had various people round to watch it and things like that. So, as I said, it's a real opportunity going forward, and hopefully. Once the final figures come in for numbers of subscriptions bought and number of on demand, that it's given consideration for the future.
Definitely. Right, I think time for one last guest. So, purely by chance, after the game on Friday, I happened to be walking past Leeds Rhinos CEO gathering Gary Hetherington as he was going back up to the VIP area. We crossed paths. I asked nicely if he'd record a quick interview with me for the podcast. He did, and this is what he had to say.
So, Gary, welcome to the podcast. You sort of made the trip down here last year for the pre-season friendly. You've come back again in 2019. How are you impressed with how the Bears have progressed since your last visit?
Yes, last year we went away with some real good memories. I thought the Bears put on a really good event, and the Rhinos ran away with the game. It was a good exercise though. We've come back here and seen a much more competitive game and a very enthusiastic crowd and a very good experience.
And is it how rewarding has it been to build and nurture this relationship between the Rhinos and the Bears? Because from the outside, I get the impression you're impressed with what the Bears are doing and what Alan Robinson has been trying to do. Is it a club you're quite fond of?
Yeah, that's right. We're keen to help those who are trying to help themselves, and there's no better example than the Coventry Bears. I think Alan's done a terrific job. The club needs to grow and develop at all its levels, and I think it's trying to do that, and credit to them.
And how about your young players who are on show tonight? Was there anyone in the Leeds side that particularly caught your eye? You're excited about potentially getting first team action this year?
Oh yeah, quite a number of these guys will all play first team rugby league. Some of these players played against the Australians recently and beat them. So these are some of our best quality young players, some of the best players in the game in actual fact. And obviously it's a very young side, but we're very impressed with the quality of the game, the quality of our performance. To achieve a win was a really good result. I thought probably a draw might have been a fair result because Coventry certainly played their part as well. But it's a really good competitive game and a great experience for our players.
And just quickly, because I know you're a busy man and you need to get off, but what are your thoughts for how both sides might fare this year? Obviously you're going to have targets in mind for the Rhinos, but what are you hoping for from your side, and where do you think the Bears might finish this year?
Well, certainly for the Leeds Rhinos, we're obviously looking for a much better year than we had last year. We had a disappointing year by our own standards, and I'm pretty confident that this year will be a good year for us, both our first team and indeed our academy team. I think for the Bears, I was very impressed with them tonight, and I think the Division 1 is getting more competitive every year, and I think Coventry will certainly hold their own next year.
Great stuff, Gary. Thank you so much for your time, and maybe see you in Super League sometime soon.
Hold me well, yes. Thank you.
So massive thanks to Gary Hetherington, Leeds Rhinos CEO, for joining us on the podcast and for his continued support of the Bears. Craig, it's brilliant that a club the stature and size and influence of Leeds is such a big supporter of what the Bears are doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to give huge credit to Gary Hetherington, because Leeds could play their pre-season games anywhere. They could play, they could pick somewhere within 20, 30 miles of Leeds, and, play a local fixture, a local derby. But for 2 years running now, they've come down to Coventry to play a game. It gives them an opportunity to look at some of their younger players, fringe first teamers, and give people a run out. But the support that it gives the Bears is that you have these pre-season games where over the last 2 years now, there's been, averaging over 1,000 people at each game. There's an opportunity for the Bears to make revenue, but also for the Bears players to test themselves against some really quality players from a Super League club. So, it's really fantastic that Leeds have done this, and that they're supporting expansion and supporting the Bears. And, slightly off topic, but also brilliant to see Leeds fans come down to the Butts Park Arena and support their team. Mm-hmm. I mean, the atmosphere they created was fantastic. They are proper hardcore rugby league fans who love the game. There was some real good banter throughout the game as well, and I'm pretty sure they all enjoyed themselves as well. Really good.
Good stuff. So that is almost it for this episode. We will, of course, be back with a preview of the new season, which, as a reminder, kicks off with the Bears at home to the West Wales Raiders on Sunday the 17th of February. We'll probably be back the week before that to preview the season, and then we'll be back throughout the rest of the season, bringing you all of the match reaction and analysis as we go through. And hopefully, as I said earlier, lots more of those little interviews with the Supporters Club man of the match and whoever else we can blag to get on as a guest of the podcast. Craig, I think we'll save most of our thoughts around previewing the season for that preview episode, but just quickly, and just based on what you saw on Friday night, just on a sort of couple of words answer, how are you feeling about the Bears' prospects in 2019?
All I'd say is there's been real good progress. Second half of last year and pre-season this year, the Bears are picking up where they left off in pre-season, and I'm quietly confident for the season ahead, I would say. Likewise.
I'm equally quietly confident and increasingly noisily excited. So that's very good. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and tell a friend to do the same. You can find links to all of our feeds and everything you need to know at covbearspodcast.com, or drop us a tweet at covbearspodcast on Twitter, and we will tell you everything you need to know. And we are sponsored by York's Tim, for which we are very grateful. As I say, we'll be back in February to preview the new season, and then it all gets going and takes us through to September. So Craig, thanks as always, and bring on the new season.
Yes, mate. Yeah, really looking forward to it.